Today we're at the now familiar Catchpen Loop trailhead, and the goal is to check out Mummy's forehead. What you're looking at is Mummy's nose. The forehead is behind, and we're talking about Mummy Mountain in the Mount Charleston wilderness, just outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. And the road that you're looking at here is Deer Creek Road in the Mount Charleston wilderness. This is the Catchpen Loop trailhead. It's the last week in September, and I did not expect to be up in the Mount Charleston wilderness at this altitude at the end of September, almost beginning of October. But um, it's predicted to be 100 degrees in the Las Vegas Valley today. 102, maybe 103, but it's yeah, the low hundreds in the Las Vegas Valley, which means that this is a perfect temperature for this adventure. Now, last time we did the headed toward Mummy's forehead, we ended up getting sidetracked on the east or the left side of Mummy's nose, which is what we're going to be traversing today once again. We got sidetracked by um, the evidence of a plane crash in a gully on the east side of Mummy's Nose. I did some research, I could not find records about this plane crash, but you can look it up on Las Vegas area trails where I went up that gully and checked out the scattered parts of the plane, some of the parts, and so anyway, yeah, um, we got sidetracked on our way to Mummy's forehead. We're going to head up toward Mummy's forehead again. This is 7 Mile Canyon. It goes up to Mummy's nose and then down in the middle of the Catchpen Loop Trail, um, down another couple thousand feet. So it's a great canyon, and the reason I'm telling you about the canyon is that there are two ridge lines. There's a ridge line on the left, which is on the east side, East Ridge. I call it Lightning Ridge because every time I've been up there, it there's been a thunderstorm and lightning strikes and hailstones. Um, and there's a western ridge on the other side of the canyon. Now, if you're going up to Mummy's Nose, the western ridge I found is the most streamlined way to go. If you're going to Mummy's forehead, you want to hit the eastern ridge. And um, last adventure, I found a streamlined way to get up to the top of the eastern ridge with minimal steep, loose rock, scree hills. So, anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Let's head up that eastern ridge and start skirting the east or the left side of Mummy's Nose and head to the forehead. Okay, having just crossed Deer Creek Road, the key here to get up onto the eastern ridge, the ridge on the left side, is to head up this nice road 092, Forest Road 092A. And the Forest Road takes a split. What we're going to do is when we hit that split, now you want to stay to the left to get onto the road. So you see these boulders that are blocking off vehicle traffic. Uh, you want to go that way. Now, of course, there are a number of other openings here. Can be confusing for Mummy's forehead and road 092A. Just stay to the left. You're skirting the base of this ridge line. On your left, the eastern ridge, And let's continue on up till we hit a split in this road. And that split is going to indicate the most gradual approach up to the summit of this ridge. You see a little approach here. That might work too, but let's go up a little further here. Okay, here we are at that major split in the road I was talking about just a moment ago. And to the right is Forest Road 092. To the left, Forest Road 092A. And I don't know why I'm telling you the names of the roads, because actually you won't see any markers. You maybe look on a map and you'll see those markers, but you're not going to see any markers on the road here. Anyway, um, to the left of Forest Road 092A is the best approach to the ridgeline. So what we're going to do is head up this slope and then begin looking for an approach gully. And that gully is going to take us up to the summit of the eastern ridge. So here we go. Okay, it's a little confusing at first here. You're looking for a gully. And I'm just not sure exactly where that great gully is. So I'm going to explore around here, see if I can find what looks like. Yeah, here we go. So as you can see, there's a little route finding to be had here. And you see where you've got a depression here. Yes, this is, I believe, the gully. It's going to take us all the way up. So let's go ahead and continue to poke around here and follow the depressions of the waterway in this gully and get up to the summit. Yeah, a good sign here that it's the right gully is that you'll see a huge tree ahead that has fallen across the center of this gully. So this, yes, is indeed the gully. You just need to get around the tree. I'd go to the right rather than the left, because it looks like the right is where the root system is and the trunk, and it's going to be easier to circle. Once you circle around this tree, my memory of this gully is that it becomes very smooth and easy to navigate. So here we go. Okay, after a little more poking around beyond that tree, and I angled a little bit to the left, here is the actual gully. And yeah, you can see how gradual this is, how nice an approach this is to the summit of the eastern ridge line. So this is the approach you want to take, very streamlined. Okay, here we are at the summit of that gully, and by doing this gully approach, we saved a lot of altitude ups and downs along the way, as opposed to had we summited the eastern ridge earlier, then we'd be in a complicated up and down situation. This has been just a steady altitude incline all the way from the trailhead, Catchpen Loop trailhead. And here we are at the summit of the eastern ridge. Now we're angling to the right. As you can see, the gully has ended here. This is the eastern ridge summit. And so now we're going to angle to the right to continue along the eastern ridge line. And you can see Mummy's Nose cliff ahead. And now we're continuing on the eastern ridge line directly toward the left side or the east side of Mummy's Nose cliffs. So here we go. And here we are with absolutely no altitude loss along the way. Conserves energy, streamlines the approach. And we are on the eastern ridge on a high point here. And there you can see Mummy's Nose. And you can see the western ridge across 7 Mile Canyon. And then to the, what I call the Highway 95 valley toward Reno. Okay, and let's go ahead and get a view of the other side of things here. This is a great viewpoint. And by the way, on the way back down, when you see that hill slightly to your right, the gully is actually between this high point and that hill ahead. So that's where you're going to want to turn left on the way back. Okay, and here's a view of the other side here of this ridge. And you see now we're going to have a little downhill and uphill. We're on the ridge, you can't avoid this, but we avoided a lot of it. And so, yeah, you can see, let's see if we can get a clear view here. Yeah, you can see between the cliffs of Mummy's Nose and the main summit of Mummy's Nose cliffs on the right, main summit of Mummy over here on the left. There is another gully, and we're going to continue in this gully. We're going to skirt those eastern cliffs of Mummy's Nose. We're going to skirt it as close to the base as we can. We're going to find the easiest route, and it'll be to the left of the base of those cliffs. And then when we get up further, we're going to be looking for Mummy's Forehead, which is in this direction. This could be it, but I'm not sure. It could be beyond that high point. But just to get an idea what else is visible, and this, like I said, this is the first time I've been on this ridge where there hasn't been a thunderstorm and clouds. So really clear views. Here's Mummy's Summit, Mummy's Toe, and then over here is Bristlecone Pine Ridge, and then I think this house here, building, made of the same materials as the materials out of which Camp Stimpson below is made. I think that might be like the director's house, I'm not sure. But Camp Stimpson is below us here. We'll be seeing more of that as we continue upward. And then over in this direction, the La Madre Ridgeline. And we crossed the La Madre Ridgeline, La Madre Ridgeline Grand Crossing on Las Vegas area trails. Did that just last week. Pretty cool. From Kyle Canyon Road to the entrance of Red Rock Canyon Scenic Drive. Okay, so Yeah, here we are. By the way, if you want to do that ridgeline crossing that I just spoke about, um, I've got a really nice streamlined route that'll get you over the ridge down into Red Rock Canyon. So, okay, onward toward this gully up ahead. So we're going to continue on the ridgeline for a while, then I'll show you where we depart the ridgeline and we angle to the left toward the gully that's going to hopefully lead us up to Mummy's forehead. And by the way, already it's been less than an hour and I've been going kind of slow, but already we're in the bristlecone pine zone, and that makes this one of the quickest ways to reach the bristlecone pine zone. Here's one of the pines. Just head up this eastern ridge and blink your eyes, and suddenly you got bristlecones, beautiful bristlecone pines all around you. It's about 9,000 feet. This is where they start. And then as you look around, you can also see mountain mahogany. There's some beautiful mountain mahogany. Curled leaves to limit the sunlight and evaporation from the sunlight. And then continuing up the ridge, more bristlecones. So yeah, truly beautiful area. So close to that Catchpen Loop trailhead. And it was so gradual. It's steep, but not horribly steep, like you're not going to slip. It's been a very gradual uphill so far with totally insignificant downhill. So very steady and gradual. And by the way, remember to turn around as you're ascending, because you are ascending very rapidly. And you have below you on this ridge um, an expansive view opening up and some beautiful photo ops here. But here is the sheep range. And you just want to note the position of the sheep range, because as you descend this ridge line, you know you're heading toward the sheep range. So just in case you uh, may get off track, disoriented. And then over here, Angel Peak. So, and then as I mentioned, the La Madre Ridge line. And then here's Deer Creek Road and Camp Stimpson. The valley is below us. So there you are. Good 360-degree view of this beautiful area. Another high point on the ridge line with an expansive view and also a view of what's ahead. So let's just look around. Mummy's Nose, 7 Mile Canyon below. We're on the eastern ridge line. Western ridge line is immediately across. And by the way, had you taken that split in road 092, you would have continued on and then begun to angle up at the upper end of that road, summit the western ridgeline about this point there, and then continued up toward Mummy's Nose summit. And you'll see on Las Vegas area trails where there's an adventure for Mummy's Nose summit that does just that. Okay, now we're looking below us. Highway 95 Valley And there's a lot down there. I'm not familiar with all the features that we're looking at. Um, I will be at some point. I know the main ones. There is the sheep range, and then very faintly Fossil Ridge in the center below. And then just to the right of that, you see a pointy peak. That's Gas Peak, the upper end of the Las Vegas Valley. And it is actually at the upper end of Decatur Road. If you just continued on up past the Clark County Gun Range. To the left of Gas Peak is the Las Vegas Range. Not to be confused with the gun range, it's actually Las Vegas Mountain Range. And there you see Angel Peak, La Madre Ridgeline, Deer Creek Road, Camp Stimpson Valley below us, Bristlecone Pine Ridge on the North Loop Trail, or just a little bit above the North Loop Trail. It's a beautiful detour. And beyond that ridge would be Fletcher Peak. And then we hit Mummy's Toe, Mummy's Knees. Got a great loop adventure from the knees to the toe. And then here's the main summit and back to the approach that we're looking toward. You see right in that area between the two cliffs. And here's the eastern ridge line. And when do you begin to angle off this eastern ridge line? You know, there's a point where you don't want to keep continuing up because you're going to end up in the cliffs. So notice that there is a limestone pillar on the ridge line ahead. Let's see if we can nail the position of that pillar. Yeah, I think it's right here. When you hit that limestone pillar, and we'll look at it in a moment when we get there, that's the signal that you want to begin angling to the left off of this ridge. But the key is going to be not to angle to the left too soon, or you will end up in the cliffs and it'll really slow you down. Well, no, if you angle too soon, you're going to end up having to negotiate the valley below and a lot of decline and incline. If you angle too late, you end up in the cliffs on your right. So yeah, we're going to be watching today for the most streamlined way through this gully area. And I think it might be to the right and above that limestone rocky formation you see below. So just wanted to give you the big picture view of where we're headed. Okay, onward. And by the way, here's the big picture view of the location of that plane crash that we found on the last adventure up here. And my best bet, based on the debris that I found, is that the plane hit these cliffs right in the center there, and that gully that we ascended, it's just on the left edge of that large cliff. And so I think that that's the gully where the parts of the plane washed down. Anyway, we'll take a look at that gully on the way up today. Okay, here we are on the ridge. We're in a limestone section with a few little pillars. I think I passed that large one and missed it, but the big question is where to angle off this ridge line as you're heading upward. And what you want to look for is along this side of the ridge line. Here's the mountain mahogany we're going through. Along this side of the ridge line, you'll see where it looks like there are some fairly gradual ridges to cross. Remember, we're heading for that point between the Mummy Mountain's main summit and the cliffs of the nose and the forehead. The main summit on the left, the cliffs of the nose and the forehead on the right, and we're heading for that opening between. But we want to stay relatively high. So what I'm going to do is start angling either here or a little further up this ridge line. I'm going to start angling to the left, and I'll show you the exact point, but it's a point at which this area that we're crossing, the gully between the intervening ridge lines is at its shallowest, so you need to find an altitude where that is true. Okay, onward. Well, still on the eastern ridge line, I poked around a little bit below, and it just seemed like I needed to ascend a little further up the ridge line, which I have done now. But yeah, now we're getting to a point where we know we need to head over to this point here, because we're going to circle around the left side of the Mummy's Nose cliffs. And this looks like as good a point as any. Looks like fairly gradual. We're going to look for the most gradual approach to this next intervening ridge line without descending too far. And so this is where I'm leaving the eastern ridge line and beginning to angle to the left. And just a quick 360-degree view. Wow, look at this bristlecone pine skeleton. So many beautiful features around here. And then here's looking down the eastern ridge line. I think that gully we ascended is between, it's just at the base of this high point that you see below, where you take a left on the way back down. So yeah, and you notice the sheep range, some of the familiar landmarks around us. That's my GPS, is those landmarks. Okay, so let's angle over and then get to the top of that next ridge. Okay, I wasted some time on the eastern ridge trying to angle to the left too soon. And what I mean by too soon is where this gully to the left is just a lot deeper than it needs to be when you get higher. So I should have stayed on the eastern ridge till I saw this very distinctive limestone pillar. That is where you begin angling to the left toward the next ridge line over. So yeah, watch for this limestone pillar. You'll save some poking around time trying to search out your route. So angle to the left. Begin angling to the left here. Okay, you've begun angling to the left, and you can see the eastern ridge line above on the right, and we're heading toward the next ridge line over. And a good sign that you're on track is that it almost looks like there's just a faintly leveled off area that we're tracking along. It's almost like it's a little trail. And so, yeah, we continue along up this little depression that at least keeps us from sliding down the slope below here. So let's continue on, and you know our target is to skirt the left side of the Mummy Nose cliff, which is just in the center there, and there's the summit of the Mummy's Nose cliff area. So just so you can gauge where you are based on the landmarks around you. Okay, there's the eastern ridge above, and here's that gully between where we are and the next ridge. You can see the gully is pretty tame at this point, so it's just a matter of finding a good crossover point, end up at the top of that gully. Let's see if I can turn on this not too stable slope area, just so you can see. Here we are looking down Camp Stimpson Canyon there toward Angel Peak. And then here looking down the eastern ridge toward that high point below, which is actually, it's not quite the descent point from the eastern ridge. It's pretty close. So anyway, yeah, if you're watching, to be aware of your surroundings, because you're going to need to retrace your steps on the way back. That may help. Okay, let's cross over to the summit of the next ridge, and I think the gully beyond that ridge is that airplane crash gully that we found on the last adventure up here. Okay, we have crossed over to the next ridge. This is, looking back, the ridge we're on. So things are going well. That crossover point was very nice. And looking down, there's the eastern ridge that we were on earlier. And you can see where there's a high point there. And either just before that high point or a little beyond is where you turn left to descend back into 7 Mile Canyon on the return trip. And then there's the familiar sheep range. And over here, Angel Peak. So it's good to have your reference points in mind. Camp Stimpson is below us. And there's that home that I was thinking might be the director's living quarters. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. And there, by the way, below, well, that home actually is at the base of Cougar Ridge. So you go to that, where the home is, and then you continue upward on that ridge line, and that's Cougar Ridge. Normally when you ascend Cougar Ridge toward Mummy Springs, which would be in the gully beyond Cougar Ridge, you would summit Cougar Ridge somewhere in this area here. So you'd come from below. You wouldn't be where the house is down there. Anyway, yeah. And so looking up, there's Mummy's Nose. We're going to go up this ridge a little bit because what we're watching for is a crossing point to the next ridge. So here we go. Okay, there's that second ridge. We just crossed over it. Here's a minor gully beyond that second ridge, and then there's a minor ridge here, and I think that the air crash gully is right over this next minor ridge, but let's go check. Okay, about 4 gullies over from that last video, we are indeed in the air crash gully, and you can read about my research on that crash if you look up Mummy Airplane Crash on LasVegasAreaTrails.com. But you can see there are various parts just from this point that are visible. There's looking down the gully. And then here is looking upward. And yeah, more parts visible everywhere. And then looking up the gully to the eastern cliff of Mummy's Nose, where the plane apparently crashed and then broke into pieces, and then the pieces washed down this gully. Okay, today we're not going up the gully. We're going to continue along and see if we can find that point where we can ascend to Mummy's head, or forehead, I should say. Okay, we are continuing to cut across this slope at the base of the Mummy's Nose cliffs above us. And the alternative is to go way low down there. We don't want to do that. We want to stay as close to the base of the cliffs as possible, and thereby avoid losing a whole lot of altitude. But we don't want to get so close to the base of the cliffs that it's too steep. So we're looking for that sweet spot. And speaking of steep, I lost control of my trekking pole. There it is down below. So yeah, it is steep. Things that are loose will definitely slide easily. So there's the cliffs of Mummy's Nose. And there's looking back over that ridge is the plane crash gully. And then looking down. So just to keep familiar with landmarks, not too much of a foothold here. And below you can see Deer Creek Road. And there it is, potentially ascending there. That might be the road that heads up toward Angel Peak. We don't know from this perspective. Okay, so let's continue on. Let's see if we can end with a forward-looking view. Yes, continuing on, seeing what lies ahead. Okay, from this perspective, it's clear that in order to get up to Mummy's forehead and up through that opening, we're going to still need to descend into the Camp Stimpson Canyon below us. Big descent. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to descend into that canyon and take it downward, see where it meets Deer Creek Road without encroaching on Camp Stimpson's private property. And that would be where we start next time, is just heading up the canyon, if it is possible to navigate. If not, I'm going to go all the way down there and then end up climbing these slopes again to get up to this point where I can traverse over to the 7 Mile Canyon Eastern Ridge. And then just to give you an idea, it's definitely hard to do a 360-degree turn, but to give you an idea where we are, there are the eastern cliffs of Mummy's Nose right above us. And you can see where, yeah, that sheer cliff there. In order to proceed, I'd have to go all the way down and head up that gully anyway. So let's go down and explore that gully just to see if there are major barriers or if we can take it all the way down to Deer Creek Road and be ready for the next adventure, get a little more streamlined. Okay, a little trick for descending into a gully that's way, way below is that you look at the direction that gully's going. It's definitely heading up in this direction. So if you're on a slope above the gully, descend so you land higher, and you're more likely to have a more gradual descent into the gully. Plus, we're going to reach that gully at a higher altitude and have more to look at. But it's more gradual than if you just headed down or headed down the slope toward the downside of the gully below. So yeah, descending a steep slope toward a gully, descend toward the upside of that gully, the higher side, and you'll find the descent easier, more gradual, and we'll see we'll see how that works out. Okay, as I continue to angle down this slope toward the higher side of the gully below, the gully is ascending, I am descending, and so we should meet some point ahead. You can see the cliffs that I would need to skirt on the left, and then you can see part of, I believe that might be Mummy's Chin up there. Not sure. And over here is the main summit of Mummy. Yeah, that must have been the Chin. There's the main summit. And there's Bristlecone Pine Ridge above the North Loop Trail. Looking down, that gully below, I bet that is really clogged with debris. That's going to be interesting. And let's see if I can get a 360 here. Yeah, this is the slope that I've been angling downward. That's the direction I came from. And yeah, definitely a steep slope, but taking it nice and gradual. And as I said, angling down toward the higher side of the gully below. Okay, let's continue. Okay, here's a good find. This gully here looks like it continues all the way up. And I remember seeing that on a map too, that it continues all the way up to this point here, which is our target. We're not going to make it today, but that's our target. And the gully, actually, by my angled descent, it's going to be an easy approach into the gully. I was wondering if there would be steep sides, drop-offs, but no. It looks very approachable down here. So we're going to go down in the gully and then turn downward, take a left, and see where we can emerge, which then makes the next trip more direct. Because what we want to do is head up this gully from the base of the gully, and I think we're going to get into Camp Stimpson. So see if we can avoid the Camp Stimpson property by hanging to the left side of the gully on the way down. There, by the way, is that house we've been looking at from lots of different angles. So, yeah, let's head down in the gully and see how friendly this gully is. If it's a very friendly gully, which means that there are no dry falls um, to navigate, then we come back to this point and continue on up. And that would be a great potential approach to Mummy's forehead. We just need to figure out how to skirt that bottom of the gully. Definitely the bottom is at the empties out into Deer Creek Road eventually, or probably a tunnel below Deer Creek Road. So we just want to see where this meets Deer Creek Road and how to get back to our starting point from this gully. Okay, here we go. And by the way, up above us, I believe we're still looking at the huge vertical cliffs of Mummy's Nose. Now, I do know that when you come up from Lee Canyon Road, and if you look at Mummy's Nose from Lee Canyon, the Lee Canyon section of Las Vegas area trails, there is a point where you reach a high saddle. I think that would be up just beyond this cliff edge. You reach that high saddle, and then there's a huge descent. And I don't know how far you need to descend, um, but ultimately you could descend all the way down to this gully. So, yeah, I could get up back up to Lee Canyon Road by going over the Mummy's Nose cliff area. Don't want to do that. That that would be pretty extreme. Okay, down into the gully, and let's head down and see where it empties out. Okay, here we are at the gully. Pretty cool. You can see the fall colors here. Again, last week in September. Very beautiful. So if you want four seasons, you're not going to find them in the Las Vegas Valley. You're going to need to come up to the Charleston wilderness. Be up in an area like this where you can actually experience four seasons. Okay, let's head down this gully I've never been in before. And what am I looking for? I'm looking for potential trails either on the right side or the left side of the gully, because sometimes it's a lot easier to skirt the gully above the gully on one of the sides. Can get kind of complicated in a gully. Another thing I'm looking for is maybe there's a trail in the gully. Hurricane Hillary passed through here a couple of years ago, and torrential rains. And so I'm thinking if there was a trail in this gully, it's pretty much wiped out. Another thing we're watching for is we're looking for distant landmarks, and there is the Las Vegas Valley. That's the northern part of the Las Vegas Valley. Straight down this way is, you can see part of Angel Peak. It's that ridge that rises up to a peak, and you can't see the little um, Air Force installation on top from this angle, trees in the way. Another thing is there's Gas Peak, the north end of the Las Vegas Valley. And to the left of Gas Peak is, guess what? It's the Sheep Range. And remember, that's our reference point for the return. Now, the gully definitely is going to head down to Deer Creek Road. The only question is, are there obstacles in the gully? And how do we skirt Camp Stimpson without getting into private property? Okay, so here we go. And by the way, one more look up the gully. There's the uphill toward Mummy's forehead and chin area. If you're standing on that height, I think you'd be on the chin. I'm not sure. We'll find out at some point. It took me about 4 hours, was traveling very slow. I would say maybe 3 hours without the video and pictures to get to this point. And we're going to measure how long it takes us to get down to Deer Creek Road and then back to the Catchpen Loop trailhead. So here we go. Okay, the gully is not too bad, but I find it easier to skirt the left side of the gully for right now, just above the gully, keeping contact so I can drop back down into the gully. But I'm going to skirt this area, less obstacles as we continue downward. And then, by the way, here is Angel Peak. Okay, another thing to watch for as we head down this gully is those gullies from above descending. And what I mean by that is, like, here's one. And who knows, this could be the air crash gully. And one could ascend this and then eventually cross over and be on the eastern ridge to finish the descent. But I want to stick with this gully to see where it empties out. Another thing I'm watching for is a connection with that eastern ridge line. Maybe it'll be possible to go over the eastern ridge line before we get to the very bottom of the gully on Deer Creek Road. So we're looking for all those things just to be aware of what is around us. Speaking of which, here's a 360-degree view. There you see the cliffs of Mummy's Nose. And you see we're almost at the end of those cliffs. So yeah, this would take us up to the eastern ridge, I believe. But we would not discover where this gully goes if we took that route. So let's continue on down. And remember what I've been calling the director's house at Camp Stimpson. There it is. So let's continue down this gully and see where it continues to lead. And by the way, yeah, there are all kinds of approaches up toward the eastern ridge line of 7 Mile Canyon. But let's stay in the gully. I want to see where this goes. And we're making great time. Now above us, you can see the northern edge of Mummy's Nose Cliff. And the eastern ridge is just at the right base of that cliff. And actually, this could be a way up, and the airplane crash gully that we just passed could be a way up. But I want to continue down this gully to see what options open up, because we may want to return up this gully. It's a lot faster than the ridges above. This is a very tame gully. Continuing down this very tame gully, and it almost appears in places like there is a faint pathway that leads down. We're, of course, heading down toward the upper end of Camp Stimpson, and so we'll need to figure out what to do once we see the camp below. But continuing on down, and very easy to navigate here. And then here's Angel Peak. So it's always good to see familiar landmarks, no matter where you are, to just affirm that you're going in the right direction. And there are cliffs above. There's going up the gully. And yeah, the eastern ridge of 7 Mile Canyon would be up in this direction. And I've seen a number of approaches to that ridge, and I think the best was the plane crash gully that we noticed a little bit ago. So anyway, yeah, continuing down, this is very rapid compared to the ridgeline ascent that I took. Okay, there's the gully below. I am going to angle off to the left on the lower eastern ridge and just see what the possibilities are there. I might be able to get back up to the eastern ridge at a low point without a whole lot of altitude gain. But let's just see what happens here. Well, I angled upward a bit from the wash below, got to this point pretty easily. But yeah, here we are, up one or two ridges over from the eastern ridge, which is over there. So yeah, maybe I'll head back down this way to the gully and continue down the gully just to get an idea where that gully empties out and different possibilities. But I do notice a slope across the way here. It's right below the what I've been calling the director's house, which is right up here. Yeah, so what I'm wondering is possibility of heading down and then up one of these slopes back to the eastern ridge, or maybe just staying in the gully below. I don't know what I'm going to do. We'll find out, but definitely crossing this huge wash canyon is not something I want to do. So let's head down and see where we can reconnect with the gully and then head down the gully a bit further. Well, here we are again, back in that Camp Stimpson Canyon wash. There's actually water running in this wash. Okay, and guess what? A little trail right here. And there is a little ribbon marker. So, yeah, let's head down this little trail and see where it leads. Now, the eastern ridge of 7 Mile Canyon is up that way. But let's continue down this little trail. I bet it ends at Camp Stimpson. Let's just see. And this little spring here is becoming even more pronounced. It must have been underground, under that wash the whole time that is on what looked like a dry wash. But you know where there's water. Water under these washes. That's why they call these the spring mountains. Under these washes, under the mountains, there is flowing water, underground springs that surfaces at times. And this is the driest time of the year, end of September, after all the summer heat, and one of the hottest summers But here you have a beautiful little spring. Flows year round. As I mentioned, I was going to look for signs of human passage, and yeah, there are a growing number of signs here. Here is another ribbon. There was a sign on a tree that said Rocky Mountain Juniper. We just passed it a moment ago. Here's a property boundary. Which means we're probably getting into the Camp Stimpson area. So let's continue down, see where we go. Okay, more signs of humans. And we are definitely heading down into the Camp Stimpson area. See if I can skirt above the camp. Don't know how possible that'll be. But yeah, we are at the upper end of Camp Stimpson right now. I seem to remember this little trail skirts the upper edge of the camp. I think I'm going to stay to this. And it then descends onto a road that will connect with Deer Creek Road. And you can see buildings below us. So I'm going to try to stay clear of that and circumvent the camp area up here. Okay, I've done that before. Actually, I'm noticing a trail that splits off closer to the eastern ridge line and seems to head upward. So let's go up there and see where it leads. Okay, there's the upper end of the camp below us. And there's where we just were, down there. And that's where two trails split off. One that heads up the far side of the canyon, and one that heads up this side of the canyon, which could correspond with the eastern ridge line. So yeah, eastern ridge of 7 Mile Canyon. So let's just continue on up here and see where this goes. Okay, this little trail appears to be ascending the eastern ridge of 7 Mile Canyon. Let's see if it connects with that ridge and where, and maybe continue down the eastern ridge of the canyon. What are the chances? And continuing upward, let's see where this might surface. Well, what are the chances? That little trail led right up to the eastern ridge of 7 Mile Canyon. So I don't know how I missed this on the way up. I think probably because I was so intent on ascending this ridge line. Here's the eastern ridge line. There's Mummy's Nose. Isn't that just amazing? And here's a good view of the forehead and or the chin, probably chin. So interesting. And there's the western ridge across 7 Mile Canyon. And now that I'm back on the eastern ridge, let's say I was ascending this ridge. I could go over the summit of the ridge and then take this little trail down to the upper end of Camp Stimpson and then take the gully, the approach gully, upward from there and hopefully end up in, well, let's get a better look at it. Hopefully that gully would take me all the way up to this area as a streamlined approach to Mummy's forehead and chin area. And that really beats the approach that that I took, which went further up the eastern ridge, and then I traversed a very steep slope and a number of gullies along the eastern cliffs of Mummy's Nose, and there, by the way, are the northern cliffs right up there. So next time I do this, I think the most streamlined route might actually be to head up to this point and then catch this Camp Stimpson trail down to the upper end of Camp Stimpson, catch the approach gully at that point, and just head up the approach gully all the way to Mummy's chin and nose. So yeah, that could be a much more streamlined approach without having to go through the Camp Stimpson property. Okay, so let's head down this ridge line now and head back to the Catch Pen Loop trailhead. And this little trail from Camp Stimpson actually goes over the top of the ridge and down toward Deer Creek Road. Very interesting. Let's just follow it and see where it goes. Okay, this little trail continues to be marked. No names, but just marked as a trail. And descend into 7 Mile Canyon. And I'm almost going to bet that we land on, guess what, Forest Road 092. So let's continue to descend and see where this little trail takes us. Okay, now I know why I didn't find that trail earlier, because that over there is actually the eastern ridge of 7 Mile Canyon. And I am still I'm on the western side of Camp Stimpson Canyon. So, how amazing. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get over that eastern ridge from here. I could, but boy, that's a lot of traversing. I'm going to head down and see if I can circle around the base and back to Deer Creek Road. So let's just see how that all plays out. Okay, that eastern ridge descent gully is just to the left of that hill ahead. But as you can see, we're not going to be descending by the eastern ridge, which means that we'll take the ridge we are on here and take it down to Deer Creek Road, take a left on Deer Creek Road, and straight ahead you see Angel Peak. And there's Gas Peak, pointy little peak. And then to the left is the Sheep Range, which we cannot see, which is actually our reference point. So yeah, descend this ridge down to Deer Creek Road, take a left and traverse back to the Catchpen Loop trailhead. Here we go. A lot of wandering around and route finding. I was heading down that ridge to the left here and ended up at what looked like a pretty steep drop off, little peninsula of rock. So I looked down to my left and it was very steep. Looked down to the right a little less. And so I headed down to the right and now I'm in a wash. I can see Deer Creek from the that rocky height, the peninsula above. I could see Deer Creek Road and cars on Deer Creek Road. So I'm not too far above Deer Creek Road. It's just a matter now of navigating the gullies down to Deer Creek Road. And you can see how, yeah, we bypassed a lot of this stuff, which is probably good. And perhaps it'll be more tame below working down to Deer Creek Road. Let's find out. Okay, one last little mean stretch before we get down to the base of this gully. Look at this. Well, let's figure out how we're going to do this. It looks very doable, but wow. Yeah, it's got to end with a real bang here. Well, I keep telling myself I'm almost there. This is the latest gully I have been descending. A lot of rocky sections, class 3. Very brief though. But now we are at the bottom, we think. Looks like it's leveling out. Should be ending at Deer Creek Road very soon. But let's see. I don't know what to expect anymore. Okay, this is great. Now there's a little trail and I find out that I am on the emergency evacuation route. Okay, so this should evacuate me down to Deer Creek Road. And after being turned around a whole lot of times, I am going to make a prediction. Some of my predictions have been wrong on this circuitous route. But I'm going to predict that when we hit Deer Creek Road, which we will on this nice emergency evacuation trail, it'll be a left turn and then very, very brief stretch on Deer Creek Road to the Catchpen Loop trailhead, because I believe that the eastern ridge of 6 Mile Canyon is right up there and we're just beyond it. So I could be right, could be wrong. I don't know what to expect, but it's interesting. We're going to be surprised. Okay, you got a picture Red Rock Search and Rescue taking someone on a stretcher down this emergency evacuation route. And if you're going to Highway 158, Catchpen Loop trailhead, you'd go this way. But on the other hand, that main parking lot at the base of the Camp Stimpson Canyon is right over here, which would make a great place to land a helicopter. So if you are carrying someone on a stretcher that needs to get to a hospital fast, you'd probably take a right and end up in that parking area where you had your command center set up and a helicopter landing. But I'm heading over to Highway 158 because I think that's going to put me closer to the Catchpen Loop trailhead. Let's just see. Okay, my little gully ended at a cracked, dry water holding tank lake at one time. And I believe I hear Deer Creek Road right above me. So I'm going to head up this gully and see if I connect with Deer Creek Road. Who knows? At least maybe I'll see the road. Well, hallelujah. Here is Deer Creek Road. Somehow, that gully ended up down below Deer Creek Road. What an amazing end. So, yeah, there's Mummy Mountain, the nose on the right, main summit on the left. And now my guess is that we turn left on Deer Creek Road here, and soon we end up at the Catch Pen Loop trailhead where the beast is parked. Let's see how that all pans out. Okay, if I gauged it right, it's a left turn this direction on Deer Creek Road. If not, I'll end up at the desert overlook viewpoint. So let's just see. But my guess is that to our left, it's the eastern ridge here, the base of the eastern ridge. If you haven't figured it out by now, I kind of enjoy getting lost. That's how I learn a wilderness area. And definitely today was one of those days where I did a lot of learning being lost. Well, it's a little longer on Deer Creek Road than I'd planned, but if I've gauged things right, that's the eastern ridge over there. Has the configuration of the eastern ridge. And this over here is the hill around which the Catch Pen Loop circles, which means that the Catch Pen Loop trailhead is up here not too far at a point where Deer Creek Road is aiming down. So yeah, that would fit if this is the eastern ridge of 7 Mile Canyon. So let's see if all that bears out, at least if I can end knowing where I am. Okay, moral of this story is if you're going to be right at least once, be right at the end. Don't be lost at the end of your adventure. And here on the right is the Catch Pen Loop parking area on Deer Creek Road. This is the eastern ridge. There's Deer Creek Road, Angel Peak, and there is the hill around which the Catch Pen Loop trail loops. And then up ahead, here's the beast. So what have we learned today about streamlining a route up to Mummy's forehead from this parking area? Well, what I do is I go up the eastern ridge, I go to the aircraft or the airplane crash gully. I'd head down the crash gully to catch the main gully that ascends to Mummy's forehead. That's one way. Another way would be to park at the Stimpson, Camp Stimpson Canyon parking area or outside that area because it's got a gate, and I don't trust that when I get back that gate might be closed rather than open. Anyway, yeah, that would be another route, is just head up the Camp Stimpson Canyon, try to stay off the private property, and that'll put you right in the gully that will take you up to Mummy's forehead. So those are a couple options, and we'll see what we do. It may be next summer before we actually return here to test this out. But yeah, I think I know everything between 7 Mile Canyon and Camp Stimpson and way up that gully at this point. That's a good learning day. Okay, we'll be focusing on the La Madre Ridgeline and the Rainbow Mountains in the coming weeks, provided that the temperature finally cools below 100 degrees. We'll see. Okay, what an adventure today. Learned a lot.